I'm Dave Grease from ESU 13, and welcome to Pep Talks. Pep Talks is a monthly video series where you get encouragement, strategies, and sometimes challenges that help remind you that the little things that parents do can make a big impact on students and schools. So when I came to ESU 13, the very first day, they took my picture and they made me a name tag. So as you can see, my picture turned out great. My name tag turned out great. I was kind of excited because I happen to own this lanyard, this Righteous Babes record lanyard that my friend Jen gave me when she moved away. And so I was excited about that. Then I realized, looking around, hardly anyone here at ESU wears their name tag with a lanyard with their picture. So that's interesting. Most of the people, at least in my department, wear a name tag like this. It's magnetic and it has our name. The magnet's nice, right? It sticks on quite nicely, right? Sticks on. Problem with this is it sticks on too nicely, and you have to remember to take it off. And if you don't, you might run it through the laundry. And that's what I did. I usually do my own laundry, and I only have myself to blame for how my name tag looks. I have another one. I have another magnetic name tag. Look what it looks like. I got a great idea. I go to a lot of different trainings, and they give us these paper or sticker name tags, right? And depending on what kind of clothing you're wearing, sometimes they stick, sometimes they don't. So what I did is I stuck it onto my magnetic name tag. That way, no matter what I'm wearing, it sticks on there nicely. The only problem is the very first time I did it, I took off the sticker, and the name tag part, it happens to be another sticker, and it just peeled right off. So I've kind of ruined a couple name tags. This is the beginning of the school year, so I'm hoping to maybe get another one, and hopefully I'll take better care of it, and it'll last throughout the school year. Speaking of names, this Pep Talk is all about names, student names. In fact, it's called Student Names, Say Them Early, Often, and Correctly. So when it comes to student names, there's oftentimes lots of challenges in learning names and saying the names. First one might be you might just have a lot of students that you're working with in the classroom, in the cafeteria, on the playground, wherever you're working with students. They just might add up, and sometimes you have a whole bunch of them to remember, and so it takes a while to get you there. Another complication is they might be difficult to pronounce. Maybe they're based off of a different language than you speak, or maybe they're just unfamiliar to you, or just hard to pronounce. There's been lots of times where I'm looking at the name and I say the name and I think I'm pronouncing it right, and then the student's like, no, you got it wrong, it's this. I'm like, oh, wasn't even that close. So that's another challenge. Another one is you might run into a name that you've had in the past, spelled the same way, but it's now pronounced this way. And we all know that every year there's new creative names that you've never even seen or heard of. So lots of different complications when it comes to names. Another one I run into is, I have my student roster and I can see the name, but then the kid, as he's going through the hall, his friends are calling him a nickname. Then I have to figure out, is that the name I should be calling him? Does he want me to call him his nickname or this name, or is it appropriate that I call him this? And so there's a little bit of complication when it comes to names, but learning the students' names, saying them early, saying them often, and calling the students by name, pronouncing it correctly, really important for a number of reasons. And we're going to cover a bunch of those reasons now. We're going to head over to the classroom and look at the reasons why it's important to say students' names early, often, and correctly. Let's go to the classroom. Okay, welcome to the classroom. Students' names, say them early, often, and correctly. So why is it so important to use students' names? The first reason why it's important to use names and say them often and correctly is that names build belonging. A name is often the first step in showing a student that they are seen and valued. Using the student's name regularly helps them feel like they belong in the community that you're in. Whether it's the classroom, whether it's the cafeteria, whether it's the playground, at school, they want to feel like they belong. Using their name goes a long way to help them feel that way. Correct pronunciation shows respect. So taking time to learn and use the correct pronunciation communicates dignity, cultural respect, and care. And students notice when adults make that effort. Names create connection. Calling a student by name during instruction, greetings, or just casual interactions builds stronger relationships. And it helps students trust the adults around them. Names support positive behavior. Saying a student's name calmly can redirect behavior more effectively than a raised voice. It personalizes the message without the shaming. Next, names encourage engagement. Students are more likely to pay attention and stay engaged when the name is woven into the question, the discussion, and especially into the praise. It invites them in. And finally, names reinforce identity. For many students, their name is closely tied to their identity, their heritage, and their family. So saying their name correctly honors who they are and helps them stand tall in who they're becoming. So there you have it, 6 solid reasons why it's important to learn your students' names, say them early, say them often, and say them correctly. I worked at the middle school level where I had usually around 120, 130 students, and I challenged myself every year to learn all my students' names by a certain day. And so what I would do is I would tell my students, okay, and it was usually the second week of school, right? So I said, okay, this day on the second week of school, I'm going to know all of your names. And what I did is I created this thing called Mr. Grease's Big Test. And so essentially it was the first test of the year. And I would tell the students, your first test of the year, you don't have to take the test. It's my test. I'm taking it and I'm testing myself to see if I can say all of your names first and last and pronounce them all correctly. Very difficult with 120 to 130 students. But what did I do? I went to our system and I printed off their roster, of course. And there was a function where I could print off their names or their pictures. So I printed off their pictures, put them right next to their names, and I'd studied. And I'd be out in the hall studying. Or when I would take roll, I would be looking at their names, looking at their pictures, looking at their faces in anticipation of my big test. And it was great because my students, they're all complaining, oh, you're cheating, you're looking at our pictures. And I said, no, I'm not taking the test yet. This is studying. So I was actually able to use that as a model of, hey, if you have a big test coming up, you need to use your resources. You need to study. And so I would be out in the hall studying in the mornings before school started, and they could see me doing it, right? So I got to model studying, and I also kind of made it a point. Like, I wanted them to see the effort I was putting in. Because if you work to learn their names, they're going to see the effort, and they're going to appreciate that. So I would get to the day of the test, and if I got all of the names right, then the students had to do something silly, like call me Your Majesty for the rest of the day. And if I missed any names, then all of my students would get a 100% on their first assignment. By the way, I always missed a couple names. I never got it 100% right. I got close lots of times. Pretty much every time I got close. I learned almost all of my students' first and last names by just looking at their face, but I wasn't perfect. And that's another thing for you to think about. You don't have to get it perfect. You can say names wrong at first and show that you're trying to learn them. You can go, oh, I forgot your name. Please tell me it again. They'll tell you Okay, and they'll appreciate you trying to learn them. So that's a little activity I did. You can kind of modify that and use that if you'd like to. If let's say you have cafeteria duty, you might just say, hey, this table, I'm going to challenge myself by the end of lunch today to know all of your names, or by the end of the week to know this whole section, know all of your names and be able to say them correctly. It can make a big difference. I'm going to leave you with one last thing. We have a little bit of homework. In this video description, I'm going to leave a link, and it's just to a teacher who kind of went through a little bit of a journey with her own name when she was a student, and just kind of how she looks at names and calling students by names and how important it is as a teacher. A lot of the same things we talked about, but from a little bit different perspective. So please check out that article. It's fairly short and easy to read. And again, it's in the video description. Well, this has been Pep Talks. I'm Dave Grease from ESU 13. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and look forward to seeing you again on the next Pep Talk. Have a great day. Goodbye.